Greeting everyone, I'm Mar. Once again, this is my opinion. As you can tell from the title up there, I'm continuing my trek through Everybody Loves Raymond, one episode in one season at a time. We're still in season 8. We're on episode 15, Party Dress. This is another one from this season. I did not watch first run, and for the life of me, I cannot figure out why with this one, other than me just not getting the definite schedule of the release order right. This is one that was written by Mike Scully, a name we've heard off and on a couple times, but not as prolific as some of the others. And this one has a simple premise. It is Molly's birthday, that is Peggy's daughter, Ray's nemesis. It is her birthday, it's going to be formal wear, and Allie's invited. Simple premise. I can say this is definitely one of those episodes I get a little bit more out of watching now as an older adult than when I first watched it. Not as much as the target audience probably would have back in the early 2000s. And if I ever do have children, probably not as much as I will then, but it is one I still get some out of because I do remember a little bit about the expenses from when I was a kid, and even without children, just from my hobbies, mainly cosplaying and concert going, I do know a thing about expenses, but it's a different level of it than this. Now, go a little bit more in depth on the plot. It begins, Allie's coming home. She has an invitation to Molly's birthday party. She's all excited. It's her best friend's birthday party. The boy, David, that she has a crush on is there, which the way Madeline Sweden plays it in this episode, very believable. Flexing a little bit more talent than we normally see from her, because most of the time she's a background person in these episodes, other than like the couple episodes that revolved around her as a kid, and which, younger kid, and at that point it's like you just get what you expect. You don't really expect like thespian award-winning quality acting from a lot of the kid actors. That said, here in this episode, not too bad for her. And all the adults are all happy. Oh, it's going to be a birthday party. Then they find out it's going to be formal wear. They're like, what? Which, just from a moment, could be like, really, formal wear? Okay, that's a little odd. And then, of course, they're talking about it. It's like, oh, Molly's turning 13. That's a big age. Now, they mentioned it for a girl, but it's like, that's a big age for a teenager in general. Because I remember that was a birthday I did make a little bit of a fuss over. Off the top of my head, I don't remember what we did for it, but it is one that I was looking forward to. When I was young, I know the birthdays I looked forward to were 10, 13, and 18. Those are the ones. I remember we did some for my 18th birthday, but those are the 3 ones before that, like, yeah, big thing out of. But, of course, since it's talking about Allie and her friend group, it makes sense why they would just address it that way. Then they mention that Peggy, Molly's mom, wants all the girls to get their dresses at this one specific place. Mention her name for a 10% get a discount. And in the course of the conversation, I mentioned the store name. And it's brought up like, yeah, that store, yeah, you're not walking out of there for less than $100. And I already did the inflation calculator, because I thought, just the amount that they name alone, okay, that's a little pricey, but considering this episode is 20 years old now, $100 back in the early 2000s is different than $100 now. Even if you don't make a big deal about economics, and I don't really like, unless it's prevalent, I don't like bringing in like real world politics into the discussion of a sitcom. But to touch a little bit on economics, it is different. So I did a good Google search with it, using the inflation calculator. $100 in early 2004, when this episode was released, would be the equivalent of around 150-ish, 160. I didn't write down the exact figure, but that's, you get it. It's going to depend on what month you come in. I just did January because, beginning of the year, just to see where we're starting at. So you see that the buying power decreased by a little bit. Now, that is still a pricey dress, at minimum. Now they talk things over and it's like, yeah, that's pricey, but they're making memories. And, it's for them. Now, I get that whole thing, pricey making memories. But, just from what I remember, the only time we ever bought me like a pricey outfit to attend something large scale like this would be like a nice dress shirt and then my suit jacket, which I could still wear. And even then, I could use them for multiple things. It was just they were primarily bought for one thing, but then with that secondary function of being able to reuse them. With this one, they're going at it from the vantage point of, oh, it's going to be a fancy dress and it's going to be the one-use thing. Now, this might seem a little weird, and I'm going to preference this that yes, I'm a male talking about this. But I don't get the whole thing with one-use party dresses outside of a couple situations. That's why I'm preferencing that at the beginning before somebody brings up their keyboard. Oh, sorry. And starts typing away at it and being like, oh, you didn't know what you're talking about, male. Now, those few exceptions, of course, a wedding dress, unless, knew your vows, daughter was able to reuse it. That being a one-use dress, that makes sense. And spending a lot of money on that makes sense, even though personally I think that the wedding dressing industry, there's just way too much money involved in there. But that's more of a sidebar argument I'm not going to get involved in here, but that one I get. If you are a part of a Hispanic culture like I am on my father's side, and you go through a quinceañera, that I can get. I mean, I've never been to a quinceañera for family, and that's mainly just of how the things have fallen. The cousins and all that are older than me already had them by the time I could form memories. If they had them, I had never actually asked them if they had one. And the one younger that would have had one was overseas when she would have turned of age, and off the top of my head, I don't know if she had one. I think she did. And every other relative, either I was not close enough really relative to be invited to it, or they kept the list short if they did. So I've never been invited to one for family, but I have been at ones for work, and I've seen some of the dresses, and it's like, yep, those can get a bit pricey. So that I can get, and having talked with some of the parents just, in passing, it's like, yeah, it's costly. So for that, I get. And it's like the equivalent of a Sweet 16 outside of everything out in other cultures, so I can get the whole thing there. Those two things, yeah. Now, but when it comes to other contexts, the whole party dress thing, this is like getting a nice dress when you're invited to a wedding, but you're not in the main wedding party. Like in the wedding party, at least from the female side, I can imagine getting a nice dress for it. It being one use, I would say no, but if it just turns into that for whatever reason, yeah, I could see it. But at that level, that would fall into like the same thing as maybe your prom dress. Because I don't think a prom dress should be one use, but I could see that turning into the third category. But the type of dress that they're getting here, no, it should not be a one use. This should be something like if you want to get them a new dress for it, yeah, but it should be like anytime they're going to one, as long as they can still fit it, that's what should be what they should wear it for. Now the birthday girl getting a special one, yeah. Molly having a special dress, yeah, but that's on Peggy. Now the part of it that me, if I was a parent in here, and like I mentioned, not one, so my viewpoint might be a little skewed here, and it might change a little bit if I ever do procreate, especially if I have a daughter. The thing is, it's the fact that Peggy is telling him where to shop, and this is the dress you're getting for him, that I take umbrage with. So, Ray having issue with it, I'm 100% on this side there, because at that point, you're telling us how to spend our money. It's like, no. It's already bad enough that you're dictating that this is going to be a formal wear, and especially since you're having it at your country club. But now dictating what type of dress we're getting, no. especially when we find the price out, because Ray, he's all on board to get the dress, even though he hears how much it's minimum going to be. They go there, mentions Peggy's name. Allie picks out the type of dress. I mean, it's like a select option. You look at it like, really, that's all the options? Wow. At least they're in multiple colors, so when you get there early enough, you get to pick what color you want, and then if you get there last, they're all picked over, so, early bird gets the worm and all that. Now, the price is $250. Now, note, that's $250 in 2004 money. And that's still a lot for a dress now, I would say. But then, oh yeah, a lot more since the dollar was stretched a little bit more. And Ray has a little bit of a conniption fit. His heart goes up in his chest when he hears the amount. Now, I put that in a more modern perspective. $250 in 2004 money is the equivalent of $421.61 today. Zynga. I mean, some of my cosplays didn't even cost that much. I think the only cosplay I'd probably have that costs more than that is my Thor one, and that was because that was a custom commission, and that's actual genuine leather, so it's built to last. But all my other ones probably individually did not cost that much. Like Dio didn't cost that much, even with the additional stuff I've had done with it, thanks to Alan and the other things. Shredder hasn't cost that much. Even the ones I pieced together didn't cost that much. It's like, oh my god, $421. Now, you'd be lucky to probably get away with that for like a quinceañera dress or anything. Even then, it'd probably have to be a hand-me-down or something, but I'm sure there's networks you can get it. And that'd be saving a lot of money. But for a one-use dress where you're not the birthday girl and you're being told where to do it, yeah, I could see why Ray really is taking umbrage when he finds this out. When he sees one other parent there, I'm going to scroll down so I can get the name right. He sees Jerry there. That's that one parent we've seen a couple times, played by Jerry Lambert. He starts talking with him, and of course, by happenstance, Peggy happens to be there. And Ray and Peggy do get into the type of discussion you would expect they would have here. And Ray hands the dress back, and he storms off with Allie, and you can imagine Allie is embarrassed by this. It's not like a storm off, it's more a walkout, but it's a Ray storm out. In a moment they get there, Allie goes up to her room, and now Ray has to explain to the rest of the family why he didn't get Allie the party dress. Now, the only person that is outraged but says she still would have bought the dress is who you would expect it is, and that is Deborah. Everyone else is outraged by the price and then siding with Ray. Like, even though Robert and Amy were still on Deborah's side a little bit until they heard the price, everyone else was like, yeah, that's way too much. And Deborah's like, really, guys? It's making memories. But then they all talk her down, and eventually she sides with Ray, which is one thing I'm like, thankfully. This episode, I probably really would be hating Deborah in it if she decided to stand her ground and say, yeah, Allie's going to get the dress. Now, the second to last scene takes place later in the week on Molly's birthday, and it's a nice little moment between Ray and Allie. Sorry, I don't know why I said Robert. I know someone's going to point that out in the comment section, but happens when you do record these after you just wake up. Hence the coffee. A nice little moment between Ray and Allie. They have a nice little heart-to-heart. They're talking with it. Ray's like, oh, well, that's why we didn't buy the dress and all that. And Allie's like, I get it. And you're going to still go to a birthday party? No. And that's because she doesn't want to be the only one who's not in the dress. Which makes sense. I mean, it's the whole peer pressure thing, not wanting to look different, not wanting to be the one person on the outside. But then Ray reveals he actually bought the dress. He thought about it, and he decided to go buy it. Part of it is some of the dialogue in the previous scene, hence he doesn't want Allie to hate him. Because Ray is a little bit of a schmuck. I mean, he is kind of an absentee father at times, but he still does care about his kids. And he doesn't want them to hate them for anything that can be avoided. Like, if he was even more of an absentee father than, let's say, like Frank was, he could understand them hating him. But at the level of absentee he's at, he doesn't want them to hate him for stuff like this. So he decides he's going to get the dress because, it's making memories. And the funny thing is, he did not tell Deborah a thing, so she's just as surprised as anyone when she sees that he bought the dress. But it's a nice little moment. I know someone could say, daughter having him wrapped around her finger. I guess you could say that, but it makes for a nice little heartfelt moment between them. Now, the ending scene, of course, you think, of course, it's going to be a typical party. They're going to get there. They're going to have fun. Everyone's going to be dressed up. Nope. Because it looks like Ray's earlier actions are going to have epilogue scene consequences. Because all the other parents rebelled against Peggy. And none of the kids, at least the daughters, have the dress. And of the friends, Allie's the only one that shows up in a dress, which you can already tell she's like, she's already feeling the outsiders thing. Now the rest of the kids look all bummed out, so they're probably hating the fact that their parents rebelled against it. And of course, Peggy's all mad at Ray, like he contacted the other parents, even though Ray, other than talking to the one parent out of the store, he's pleading ignorance. He didn't do it, but of course Peggy doesn't believe him because, the whole animosity between them, and she's not going to believe a word he says at this point because the party is ruined in her eyes, which I can get. Now one thing I take a little issue with, and this is probably more from a costume thing, is that all the kids are dressed in like business casual stuff at best, and even then that's just putting it very mildly and giving it some generosity there. But it's like, wouldn't all the parents have just sent them an already existing stuff that could pass as formal wear? Stuff they already had? Or if they bought them something cheaper that's still formal, just not the thing that Peggy was dictating? So the party won't be 100% ruined. But I'll laugh at it. It is what it is. And of course it leads to Ray being in the boat that he would be in before he didn't want to be in. So it's a nice way to end the episode. Like, all in all, it's a pretty fun episode. I don't know if it goes on the always watch list. It'll probably still stay in the occasional watch list. Definitely stems up from just season marathon only to like maybe in the mood to watch. Definitely, probably if I ever do Procreate, I'll probably view this one in a slightly different light, but that probably won't be until I have kids and then they're old enough to be in Allie's age range, so a while. Now the Barones, outside of, Ray, Deborah, and Allie, they're only in a handful of scenes, and they're the ones that you would expect them to be in, where they're talking about the party dress and all that. And Mike does a decent job of writing them. Now, there's one moment with Frank where if they really wanted to, especially with Peter Boyle's health, they could have started a Frank starting to go senile subplot, but it doesn't go anywhere. And that's mainly because of one line they give him that's, I thought, was one of the funniest one-liners they gave Frank in the whole episode. And it's just the ridiculousness of it, where they're all talking about birthday parties, and I think it's Amy, if I remember right, that brings up whatever happened to having cake in the backyard and all that. And Frank's like, there's cake in the backyard? That's the ridiculousness of it. I actually burst out laughing, partially because I think I forgot about it. It just shows how long it's been since I watched season 8 as a whole, especially this episode. I'm like, cake in the backyard. It's like, yeah, it's just ridiculous. I mean, you could also play it off as him being sarcastic, but it's the way that Peter Boyle delivers it that makes it seem more like he's being seriousness, hence me thinking maybe the whole senile thing. And he has some other good lines and deliveries. Doris Roberts, how you expect Marie all the time, and the rest of the actors portray their characters how you'd expect them to be portrayed in this episode. That's really all there is to say about this episode. I don't have much else to talk about it outside the money thing and all that, but definitely not going to be on the VHS list. Unless it's like on the addendum one, but I don't plan on doing that one. Now, next episode is one that I did watch, and this one actually came out the day before my birthday that year, and I think that's why I remembered to watch it. And this is an interesting one, considering that they've mentioned a cutoff when it comes to Robert's career as a police officer several times before. They mentioned how many years he's been in, and if you know anything about law enforcement, you know that there is a minimum retirement thing. That, of course, is the episode where we find out he has a side job and he's contemplating retirement from the force. That, of course, is going to be security. Another Tucker Collie episode, and that'll be next time, everybody.